Content Catchup.
Well, everyone, we've got our first official guest. It only took us 7 episodes, but we're so lucky to have Michelle here today, who's the social media manager and more at the Sydney Swans. Michelle, thanks for joining us here on the Content Catchup.
Thanks for having me, guys. I'm really liking what I'm seeing from your Instagram feed. It's great to have a little podcast talking about all things content.
It's very kind words.
Yeah, we struggle with going too far with our Instagram content so far. It's sometimes just becoming a blatant sledge match between Barks and myself. So as long as other people are enjoying that. But how are you going today, Michelle? What's life like in Sydney?
It's quite good at the moment because I'm on a bit of a break. Obviously the season's still going for a few clubs, but I've got back from being in a hub the last 9 weeks. So this is my 3rd week off, and I think it's probably only been this week where I've started to feel back to my old self because hub life ruined me a little bit. So it was a tiresome experience, but it was a good one at the same time.
I did see a tweet from you, Michelle, about, I think you rattled off all these stats about how many plane trips, how many tweets, how many days you were actually in there. Do you remember? Actually, I think I've got it in front of me, but you had 53 days, did you, in the hub? So you did the entire thing?
Yeah. So we, unlike the Victorian teams who sort of have spent a lot longer, which you guys obviously were part of at the beginning, Sydney wasn't too bad in terms of COVID. So we played a few games at home, which we were lucky to get, I think, 2 or 3 games at the SCG, which was nice for the small amount of Sydney fans we could get in. And then we were flying in and flying out every weekend or every second weekend until Queensland then shut the border to Sydney because the COVID hotspot was getting closer to the SCG where we're based. So then we had to get out with basically, I think it was 30 hours notice. So we sort of knew it was probably coming, but then we had a very short turnaround to get on a plane. And then we went to Brisbane for the first week and then in Perth for 3 weeks, which included 2 weeks of hard quarantine. And then we spent the rest of the time in a hub in Cairns and flew to the Gold Coast a few times in between as well. So yeah, it was a lot of plane trips. I'm not a great flyer, so that was probably the one thing that I didn't enjoy the most about it. But that said, I probably, because I've flown so much now, it's probably put my fear on the back burner a little bit, which is good. But yeah, I think I put in that tweet, I don't even know how many number of media ops, tweets, Facebook posts, COVID tests.
You had to do them almost every day.
As well. Yeah. So the COVID tests, I didn't actually think they were that bad by the end of it because you just had
that was actually my opinion of it. I reckon people complain a bit too much about them.
Yeah,
I hear someone else thought it was all right.
well, I wouldn't choose to do it, but I think by the end of it, it was just part of the whole experience, really. And I said to my friend when I came back to Sydney, now because we'd been tested every week for however many months, sometimes twice a week with a short turnaround of games, you come back here and, you have hay fever or something and you think, oh, do I need to go and get tested? Because you're getting tested and you've sort of had that, like you get that text message saying you don't have it. So it's that little bit of doubt. So it was not nice, but you sort of had that going, okay, I'm good for the whole time you're in the hub. So you just deal with it in terms of the tests.
It is actually a nice relief. Barks actually got a cold while we were up in the hub, and he did the right thing. Like he locked himself in his room for 3 days, but I can imagine there was probably like a 24-hour period where he was a bit nervous waiting for a test result.
Yeah, I get quite a few allergies and things like that, and now that I'm back in Sydney, I've sort of been like, and there was one day I thought I might just go down to get tested, and it was interesting because I haven't really had to think like that for 6 months. So
just makes you paranoid, I think. But I think so. That was a fun time because Jules turned into my personal waiter, leaving me 3 meals a day at my door. That was quite a good experience.
Leaving and running. It was real fun.
So Michelle, I'd love to say we've done this for every guest, but seeing as you're the lucky number one, we're going to try to embrace a bit of a content catch-up guest quickfire 4 or so questions. So, all right, you ready to do this?
Let's go.
All right. Nickname?
Oh, my nickname.
If you have one.
Yeah, I just get called Shell, really. That's my nickname. It's actually interesting. I've never been called Mish before until I started working at the Swans, and Lance Franklin was like the first person to call me that, and so I didn't correct him because he's Lance Franklin. So you call me whatever you want to call me. And then a few of the other boys have done it too, and the whole time in the hub I've just become Mish as well, and I thought, oh my gosh, I've never been called this before, and I'm sure a lot of Michelles are, but I've always just been Shell or Shelley, and now I'm Mish at the Swans, so that's probably my new nickname.
Yeah, absolutely. We know job title, I know Jules introduced you, but job title?
Yeah, so I'm social media manager, and I'm also doing PR and media as well now. That's my new title, so exciting. Yep,
great. Favourite bit of content you've worked on?
Favourite bit of content? God, we work on so much, don't we? You guys have been doing some good re-signing ones lately. I've noticed some good animations there. So I guess there's like that kind of content. So when we had John Longmire re-sign, we had a good little content piece. We did it to Old Town Road because of and we had this bit of footage that our videographer captured when we were down at Bondi one day, and it was sort of like the players just parted so nicely, and then John came through, and it was kind of exactly like the film clip to Old Town Road. So we sort of had a play on that, and that went really crazy on social, which was good. But probably one that I'm probably proud of the most is from a couple of years ago. Dane Rampy he still does, wears like a terry toweling robe and a lot of the other boys do in the change rooms after the game. And I just put a photo of him up, and he was wearing the robe, and everyone started going crazy about these robes. And I thought, oh, okay, maybe this isn't a thing, because this was I'd probably only been there a season or so, and I just noticed how much everyone loved Dane Rampy wearing this robe. And I'd seen that Bud had worn them and Adam Goods over the years and stuff as well, but I don't know, just the aura of Dane Rampy and the moustache and all of that, I don't know, it just worked. And so then I sort of took on the fans' point of view, being like, oh, should we stock this in the Swan shop? And it just went crazy. Everyone wanted this robe. I remember actually we got a message from a Carlton fan saying, I'm a Carlton fan, but can I get one of these robes? And so I then took it to our consumer department. I said, oh, there's this demand for these robes. And so we put together a bit of an interest form, because we thought we don't want to go crazy with buying these if it's just, people having a bit of fun on social. And we had so many people sign up for their interest. And so we ran a bit of a campaign, like a movie trailer type thing, the robe coming soon, and it went really crazy. And then we had a limited amount of robes available, and we sort of did them in releases, and people were wearing them to the SCG and down in Melbourne and stuff as well, and all over the place really. And then we did it again the year after because the demand was there. So then we did the robe return. So it was kind of like that Star Wars in terms of graphics and stuff. And it went crazy, this whole robe thing. And then we ended up working it into our Red Kite, which is our charity partner for children's cancer. And we did a whole, you could buy a ticket and a robe to sit in the red robe bay for Red Day, for Red Kite. It was a bit of a mouthful. Really cool. And we sent them to Robbo and that at AFL, and Jared at AFL 360, and they wore them and stuff. So it was just it was something that started on social with just a picture, and then it ended up being, a sales outcome for the club, and then a greater PR piece as well. So that's probably one of my not proudest moments, but something that was just good to see it go from that to that.
Yeah, that's really cool. It's funny. It's funny how it's funny how these things start, like how something like just a photo in the change room can turn into this massive, probably something that obviously wasn't even planned, and it just turns into a really successful bit of content, and even towards the charities. That's really cool.
Yeah, so it was content. It was obviously made money because people were buying them from the Swan shop, and the charity as well, obviously donating parts of it back to Red Kite, which was really nice. So that was that was probably a good campaign that I always look back on and think, oh, that was really cool. They're probably my favourite couple of bits of content, those two.
Yeah, cool. And lastly, we wanted to chuck on in about yourself. It's not all about the role. A non-work skill you rate yourself most in?
A non-work skill.
Could be anything.
I am good at, well, I've been told I don't sample my own baking too much, but I do make cupcakes. I haven't made them for a while, but I used to help out for kids' birthday parties, and I've done a couple of weddings up here in Sydney. So yeah, I guess cupcake baking, I don't really have much time to do it at the moment, but it used to be sort of my side hustle. When I was working in cricket, I used to sort of do it in summer. But yeah, I also play hockey as well. So I've grown up playing state hockey for Tassie,
Nice.
a bit older and not as fit, but not running around in state colours anymore. And now that I work in a winter sport, it's a bit harder. So when I was working cricket, it was obviously a lot easier to put a lot of my time into hockey. But yeah, we'll go with cupcakes and hockey. They're my they're my other talents.
Sounds like a great, like really bizarre album name that someone would release.
Cupcakes and hockey.
Shells, cupcakes, and hockey.
Yeah.
That's what we've gotten from this.
Well, successfully got through our first rapid fire.
Yeah, so it wasn't too rapid when I started going on about that road example, but it's sort of like a 3-part thing. So
it was worth it. Yeah, absolutely. You already touched a bit about your experience to the hub, so I suppose we don't need to dive too much more into that. But you were up there for such a long time. How did you stay inspired, like to keep producing content week in, week out?
Yeah, it was really, I found it like it was a great experience, but it was really hard at the same time. And you sort of feel bad saying that. And I'm sure you guys would probably know the feeling where you've got friends that have lost jobs, that don't have jobs, that aren't working in footy or even in the whole sports industry or other events industries and stuff. And you're whinging because you're like, oh my God, I'm under the pump so much up here. I can't escape work. It's sort of all you're doing. And when you are in that environment, it's really hard to switch off all the time, especially we actually only had 2 of us from our media team in the hub, which made it quite hard. We had people working back in Sydney, but it's different when you're with the team and having to do things on the ground. Then you're going back to your computer and you've got emails back in Sydney and whatnot. So I found it was a really hard experience. It's probably like one of the hardest working times and most amount of screen time I've ever had and that type of stuff. So it was that constant, as you said, you really wanted to keep your fans engaged though. Like you had to put that mindset of your mind might be tired and you're seeing all these guys 24/7, but not everyone else is. They're only seeing the glimpses that you're showing them. So you always have to put the fans first, but you know, if you're going through times of being fatigued, you don't want your audience to think, oh, the social media person's fatigued and they can't be bothered creating good content for us. But yeah, I did find it really hard, but it was also this experience where we were doing all these different things and, you know, all 4-day turnarounds with games and you were with the players and that all the time. And it was that also you didn't want to annoy the players all the time for content because you wouldn't normally be doing that anyway. Like if we were in Sydney, you would have that time at the club with them and you'd get them. But, you know, if you're eating dinner with someone, you don't want to be like, oh, by the way, can you come and film this for me?
Yeah.
But the players are really great as well. Like they understood, which I'm sure you guys would be the same in terms of like our commercial partners and that. You have a lot of content you've got to get done to tick off, which normally, you know, you'd have days and months and that to prepare. You know, setups and stuff when you're in studios and stuff like that. So they were really great in terms of being like, yep, like let's do it, let's get it done. So it was just all those little bit of extra things that we had to do on top of the day-to-day of being there and capturing everything that was going on.
Yeah, you're right. It does make it harder when you're 2 out. Like, for example, we were lucky. We also had our media manager there who helped us organize like a lot of the more commercially sided stuff. But when you're 2 out and you sit down for lunch and someone's like, oh, you still need to get this. And you're like, crap, forgot about that. Quick, let's wrap that up. Or you're going to players like Bucks, tell me if I'm wrong, but we also felt a bit weird when you're going to them after hours and like, hey, we still haven't knocked this out. We can either do it first thing tomorrow or we can just get it done here. I think they understood that though. I think you're right. Yeah. Like they know that, you know, I mean, half the time they were bored anyway. So
I know, like what else were you doing? Just sitting in the lobby or like, no, they like, that was probably another thing I learned. Like obviously we work at a football club, so we know what these guys do all the time because they're
Yeah.
always at the football club and we're always at the football club. But it's just the whole, you know, their whole day to day is done to a timed, you know, through an app on their phone. And, you know, there's lots of people talk about, you know, oh, how hard it must be for an AFL player and all these types of comments you see on social, and you think, oh, they, you know, it's not an easy job. Like they're obviously very lucky to be playing a sport they love and getting to do that type of stuff. But, and you know, their downtime does include golf and PlayStation, but that's a very small part of it. I think a lot of the time as well, especially because we were in these hubs, you know, there'd be press about the glamorous life of being at a golf resort in Perth and, you know, being beer in cans by the pool and stuff like that. And it was just, the reality is it was probably like point whatever percent, because the day-to-day was meetings and training and massages and coaches going through things with coaches and 4-day turnarounds. They're pretty busy people, just like us.
Yeah, absolutely. And not being able to escape coaches either, like the amount of times I saw coaches at dinner with laptops going up to players. It doesn't stop.
Yeah, exactly. And just being around the same people all the time, I think, like, it's great because you got to know people on a different level, and that includes players as well. Like I have a pretty good relationship with all the players, but you got to know little things that you might not have known. You know, I got to know things that some of our players were studying that I wouldn't have even thought that they were studying. So it was quite an interesting experience.
I had a question about the hub in general. I guess, did you learn anything from that experience that you'll take into the future? So it could be one little example I had. I think you touched on it about screen time and trying to tune out from work because you're always around work people. My little example of this was going for walks. So I don't think I ever really enjoyed going for walks. I have a little dog and it's not something I'd consider fun, but something I took from the hub was removing myself from the work situation, actually going for a walk and really enjoying it. So was there anything like that, it could be work or non-work related, that you'll take into the future?
I think it's probably similar, just the little things that you, and I think a lot of people during this whole pandemic would have a similar answer. The little things you take for granted that were sort of taken away from you. Like we've obviously been, you know, before we were in the hub, we started being under AFL protocols. So most people that follow AFL would know these, and we couldn't see friends. You know, you couldn't have a friend over for dinner. You couldn't go to a cafe. You know, I couldn't go to the gym. I couldn't play hockey. Hockey's a massive part of my life. And I basically, you know, I'm not playing hockey this year. I'm going into a hub situation because that's my job. So to have all those things that sort of make me up as a person taken away, and then just becoming, I basically felt like I was just Michelle that works at the Swans the whole year. So now that I've come back and I'm not under these protocols, you sort of take little things for granted, like, oh, I can message my friend and we can go sit in a park now. And when I first came back, I was a little bit anxious. Like I went to Westfield and I was like, my gosh, there's so many people, because you know, we were only allowed to go for essential things. You couldn't go shop, you know, clothes shopping or things like that. And so just probably taking the little things for granted. And also it's quite funny. I found like last year, I felt like I had a really not long year, but like I worked really hard last year at work, and I always seem to be run down. I thought, okay, next year I really need to look after myself as well. You know, something can wait. You know, you don't always have to be on, and you guys would know when you're on social, you have that constant need to always be on, because you might miss something, and then you're like, oh, the 5 minutes that you're not on, something will happen, and then you'll think, oh, I've missed that. And so then obviously with this year, it was a completely different year, and probably on more than what we've ever been before. So I think it is just the little things that I've come back going, no, you know, you can take a break. And it sounds stupid, like when you say it out loud. Yeah, of course you can take a break. But I think when you work in social and media and this space, it is so constant. And I don't think everyone always gets that. I think a lot of people think you're just sort of posting stuff. Like that's what you do. You sit here and you post stuff. But you're sort of always on. You've always got an on button. So just being able to, switch off a little bit. And as I said, it was hard in the hub, but now that I'm back, I'm sort of reflecting on it a bit more. I think I'll take that away.
Yeah, it's a good answer because I think what I think of this whole, not to get too deep about the global pandemic, is that you'd hope that everyone can sort of appreciate the little things like being able to go for a walk or to the shops, like you said. So it's a very good point.
But aside from all that, Michelle, you've been working in sport for 10 plus years across cricket and
Make
AFL.
me sound very old.
It's just experience. But like, what do you love so much about the industry, and what, despite everything that we do that's so hard, what keeps you coming back?
I mean, yeah, as I said, I was lucky enough to work in cricket when I first got going. When I was at uni, I originally started off wanting to be a PE teacher. So sport's just something that I always grew up with, and then obviously played high level hockey growing up, and really enjoyed hockey coaching, and just, I don't know, just was like, I really want to be a PE teacher. And then I started that at uni, and I wasn't enjoying it. The degree was a little bit more specialized. So I was doing quite a lot of like chemistry and maths for like human movement side of things. So sports science. And I just thought, I don't know if I really want to do this. I can still hockey coach, and sports media had always sort of interested me quite a bit, but I'm not controversial enough to be a journalist. And so this is obviously pre-social media days. So I thought, where would a sports media, like where would that take me if I don't want to be a journalist, because I like writing, but I just can't dig around for stories, and that's just not in me. So then I went back and I started doing sort of a broad media degree down in Hobart, because I'd relocated to Launceston. And then I did my prac at Cricket Tasmania in my third year, and sort of saw this PR side of things and thought, yeah, this is definitely more me. And then I got an opportunity to work, asked me if I wanted to help with a digital role. They needed someone to start up the Facebook page for the Hurricanes and Twitter and all this, which is crazy talking about this now, seeing how far the Big Bash has come. And yeah, then I was in Big Bash for 7 years, which was amazing, and worked over in England as well for a season, which was such a great experience. Doing an Ashes test at the county I was at there, and then the county team I worked for actually won the championships when I was over there, so I picked a good year. A young up-and-comer called Ben Stokes was with us that year. He turned out all right. He turned out all right.
Completely lost on Bark to hates cricket.
I can just nod. I can pretend like I know what's going on.
No, this is good. Let's keep talking cricket.
And then so
right, thanks for your time, Michelle. Enough.
Next sport. No, so after cricket, I thought, I'll I really loved cricket and I loved working it, but I really loved AFL. Grew up watching AFL and whatnot. So, and in terms of media and sports media, I feel like it's sort of the pinnacle in Aussie sports. So applied for this job at the Swans, and here I am 4 seasons later. So yeah, it's been, in terms of, I don't know what keeps me coming back. I love being that connection, I guess, between the team and the fans. That's basically what you are, the eyes and the ears. And I was talking to a friend who works in social, doing a similar sort of chat during lockdown, and one thing that I think you just have to think about is people don't see what you see. And we're very lucky to work at a football club with these great people. When you run into people in the hallways and then you talk to them, and then you think, that's just my day to day now. And then you might post something and it might just go crazy, and you think, that's right, people don't see that person every day, or they haven't seen that person for a while and they look different now, and little things like that. So I just like being that connection and the storyteller, I guess, as well.
That's
when
such
sharing
an
the good
unreal
stories.
answer. It's so refreshing to hear how other people think about it, but that's like, being that connection is such a huge answer. I don't think that's a wrong answer at all. I think that's a perfect answer to the question.
Absolutely. And to be really self-centered on the podcast, it's sort of why we wanted to hear from people like you to actually get a grasp of what it's like behind the scenes, because I think it's probably one of the first things me and Jules said is, like, you don't hear people talking too often about what we see and what we do. So as Jules said, I really enjoyed that answer. Yeah.
I don't think it should be, this club's better than this person, like than this team on social or digital, or they copied them with that. Like, I think it's just about sharing ideas, and we're all in it. We all want, especially in football, and it was the same in cricket, you all want people to be consuming, you know, your content, yes, but you want people to be excited about the players and the sport as well, which, you know, you guys probably the same with lockdown when all the Americans sort of jumped on board AFL. You know, they had no idea what this sport was, and then all of a sudden you're getting all these American fans tweeting you, and every team was trying to get every American on board and that. But, you know, at the end of the day, you're just trying to grow your sport.
I think it's something especially Americans do really well, because it's probably an aspect of them not being afraid to, I guess, more show off, if that's the right way to put it. Like you see more people trying to put their own work out there to be like, check out this really cool thing I created. But I feel like not enough people in Australia do that, because it's sort of like a sense of
me type.
You don't want to be too arrogant. You don't want to put yourself out there. But I know when I first jumped in the footy environment, that's all I wanted to follow. I wanted to find individuals that made it. I didn't necessarily want to find the teams that made really cool stuff. I wanted to be like, who's that face that made that video in my...
Yeah, and I think you're right. You do see it a lot with American sports. And I think we are seeing it a little bit more with, you know, you sort of know now who works at each club. And as I'm lucky, I've been across cricket as well, so I sort of know that. And I've got friends that work in league up here. So you sort of make those connections on there, and you can see the face behind the content, which is really cool.
It is. It's like absolutely becoming a great community. It would be very rude of me not to ask, this one's not on the run sheet, but as a Tasmanian, can you explain to Barks and myself what a jack jumper is and why this name is so important to Tasmania?
Go back to the last episode, Jules.
Well, if you saw my Twitter a few weeks ago, I remember, like, I'm not a massive basketball fan. It's something that, I mean, I will watch it and I will 100% go for this team, because there are not many Tasmanian professional sports teams. So, but I mean, I don't want to stand here and talk about that I'm an expert in NBA, but I would not an expert, but obviously, as you said, I've got a lot of experience in terms of brands and marketing, and, you know, starting a team from scratch on social like I did with the Hurricanes. So, and, you know, for the record, not many people liked the Hurricanes name or the colours when that first started, and look where we are now. So that's something to maybe think about with the jack jumpers. But yeah, when the poll went up, I thought, oh, like, out of all those, like, really? Is the jack jumpers the best we could go with? But then once the video came out and the whole brand sort of came to life, I did get it a bit more. And yeah, a jack jumper, you don't want to get bitten by a jack jumper. I've been bitten by them as a kid down at my grandparents' shack, and that they are nasty little ants. But it's quite funny to hear. I don't want to use the term mainlander, but the mainlanders, when I'm sitting here on the mainland, the mainlanders talk about, like, they don't have no idea what a jack jumper is. And I knew that they were obviously, like, not popular, but there's a lot of them in Tasmania, but I didn't really know it was something that was so connected with Tasmania. But I think the marketing was probably directed at kids and that as well. I read an article that was in the Mercury. Can't remember. I don't want to say who it was. I don't want to quote someone who it wasn't, but it was along the lines of, you know, that's who they were marketing it at, in terms of the logo, the whole brand video and things like that. So I guess you got to take hat off to them, and you got to sit and listen and appreciate the reasoning behind why they've done it, instead of just, I think, and my first reaction again was, oh, like, what's that name? But yeah, you know, I think a lot of people probably were like that on Twitter and Insta and that in the Facebook comments. But if you do sit down, look at the video, they put that really good video together about how the logo was created. Little things like that sort of make it up a bit more. So I think it'll be interesting to see how it goes. I think Tassie will get around whoever it is. As I said, no one wanted the Hurricanes because it was Hobart and it should be Tasmania, and there's no hurricanes in Hobart. You know, that was basically what it was like for me 9 years ago. I don't even know I don't know what BBL we up to. I don't even remember. 10 years.
It's not my sport.
9 or 10. Yeah.
10, I think. Yeah. So I think the jack jumpers will be okay.
Yeah, we talked about it last week, and I think you're spot on, because you do take a bit to, I don't know, you just straight away nitpick at what you see and the name in front of you. But once you actually dive a little deeper, you're like, all right, I can see this direction. And they did it well, I think.
Yeah, I think so. And I think that's like with anything, isn't it bad how everyone's reaction is always like
Negative.
the critical reaction. And we see that as people that put stuff out. Like, you know, if you win by 60 points, or why didn't you win by 61 points? Or, you know, that's sort of like, that's sort of the mentality of fans sometimes. Obviously, that's not if you win, fans are going to be happy. But people always find like negatives. I was actually just on Facebook for not related to sports at all, but it was on the Channel 10 page, and they've obviously been hammering the Bachelorette on their socials, and the first 5 comments were negative, like no, but like, why are you following a Channel 10 page that like is such reality TV based, and then just going on there and writing, like, why bother? Like, why bother? So
because people have nothing better to do with their time. That's
always
all it
that
is.
negativity. So I think, that's just the way, unfortunately, everyone's minds work these days.
To be fair, they are the best TV shows, but we're talking about The Bachelorette, so it's probably time to wrap it up. Michelle, on behalf of myself and Jules, we really appreciate your time. I thoroughly enjoyed hearing from you and what you do and a bit about you. And you're our first guest on Content Catchup, so thank you.
Thanks a lot,
for having
Michelle.
me. I look forward to hearing from what other guests you have lined up. Maybe someone from the Jack Jumpers.
That would be a great follow-up, actually.